Hello, welcome to Talking Football Live, the home stretch. My name is Chris Ryan. I am joined by Danny Kelly, the Space Needle, and the great return of Kevin Clark. Unlike Ryan Tannehill, you can play on one leg.
I'm the Matt Moore of this video.
I hope so. What's up, guys? We're here. We're the most popular Facebook Live video in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That's why I'm wearing the vest today.
Yep.
We're talking a little bit, by the way, we were brought to you by Miller Lite. And today we're talking about the home stretch, teams going into the playoff run, some teams who were having some problems. We were going to start by taking a circular look around the league and talking about the Seahawks and the Broncos. But then yesterday happened, and two of the big favorites in the league wound up losing. So let's talk about now what for the Dallas and for the Raiders. Let's start with Dallas. Danny, did you see anything in that Giants game last night that you think is a red flag?
Well, I mean, obviously the way that Dak played is a red flag in the sense that he'd been playing so well before, that game. And so you wonder, a big part of the reason they've been so good is because he's been able to convert on third downs. And I think I saw the stat, they're 2 for 23 on third down in their last two games. And that's disconcerting just because, they move the ball with Zeke, they move the ball with their offensive line, but they need to convert on third down sometime. And, if they don't have that, that's disconcerting. But I mean, they've been so good all year long that I don't think, a tough game against Giants who have a good defense is necessarily indicative.
And a good Vikings defense before
Exactly, yeah. So there's two really strong fronts that they've played right in a row. I'm not necessarily jumping off the Cowboys.
I believe you called them war daddies last night on Twitter.
You need some big bodies down there to stop them.
But this is the problem with rookie quarterbacks, right? Is because they don't necessarily get the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. Even somebody like Dak, who people have been talking about as an MVP candidate.
Right, and so what concerns me is, it's his first multi-interception game in his career, obviously. Right. It was by far the worst game of his career, passer rating-wise. It was only the third game he'd ever had under 100, which is incredible.
Yeah,
there was another game against the Giants where I think he was 68, something like that. He had a stinker against the Eagles, and this was 45, okay? And so he's really only played 3 bad games.
And he's a rookie.
He's a rookie, by the way.
Yeah.
What concerns me is we don't know how he's going to react to the drumbeat that's going to happen this week.
Yeah.
What's going to happen this week?
You're being serious about this.
Absolutely.
It will happen.
I'm drum. I want. Here's the thing. I don't think they should start Romo.
Are we talking Ringo drums or are we talking John Bonham drums?
Just John Bonham, just Moby Dick, just the solo, and at the end, Tony Romo is in the conversation as starter. I don't think they should start Tony Romo, but I do think we should talk about it. Okay. And so, and that's going to happen this week because Jerry Jones was saying. We weren't even thinking about it, but he was being asked about it, and now Dak will be asked about it. And Tony Romo has not spoken. He hasn't taken a question all year because he didn't take questions at that concession speech press conference. And now he'll be asked about it, and he'll probably want to talk about it. Yeah, I'd like to compete. That'd be great. And so there's going to be a lot of media attention. I'm just interested to see how Dak responds to it because obviously it was an easy transition for him to start because he wasn't taking anybody's job. Romo was hurt. And then Romo was so classy when he sort of gave up the job. There was never a controversy. And if he struggles against Tampa Bay in particular, you're going to start to see people say, maybe it's time. And I think obviously that's way too early, but I do know it's Dallas. I do know it's the most popular team in the history of football, basically.
Yeah.
And people are going to want to talk about it.
But here's the thing. Des Bryant makes that catch.
Well, yeah.
Were we even talking about this?
There's nuance to football, but does that ever matter?
I know, but
how many things, by the way, Des Bryant making catches has decided the fate of 100 people in NFL history.
More than that, probably.
Yeah.
Give me a reason why you're worried about Dallas besides Dak Prescott.
Well, I mean, it's still their defense.
Yeah.
Their defense just isn't a top group. Now, they look pretty good last night, but the Giants' offense has been a bit of a mess other than Odell Beckham. But throughout the whole year, the defense hasn't been anything that I don't think scares anybody. It's the offense that basically keeps the ball away from opposing, teams for so long that you have to take advantage of every chance you get to score the ball. So, I don't know. The defense is still nothing to write home about, and so if their offense falls off significantly, then that could be sort of, I don't know if that's the end of them, but that's definitely what brings them down.
They have a tough couple of games coming up with Tampa, Detroit, and Philly. Philly playing for pride, I guess, at that point. They've lost
a lot
me.
of pride.
I've become a Cowboys fan.
I can't believe you're wearing that.
I don't know why I'm doing this, honestly. It's really just kind of self-flagellation. On the other hand, you got the Raiders in the AFC.
Yeah.
And I was kind of wondering, that Chiefs loss in retrospect it's a tough one, but I don't necessarily think that there's a lot of worry unless you're worried about Carr's finger. But do you see anything, systemic that we need to worry about with the Raiders?
Well, I think there's a larger issue, which is that we don't know if what the Raiders are doing was ever sustainable. This idea they'd be down 4 points with 1:45 to go in every single game, throw a 23-yard fade to Michael Crabtree and win. Well, I mean, it was like they were running a simulation. I mean, it was like, and so I think we were always, okay, maybe that's going to end at some point. But then on the other hand, the Chiefs had the same problem. I think we're 27th in passing defense, 28th in rushing defense, something like that. And all they were doing was just creating turnovers, which is, again, not a sustainable thing. But we saw them go against each other, and we saw that the Raiders that their offense was not as sustainable as we thought. And the Chiefs were. They were creating turnovers. They were getting big hits. They were getting big stops. And so that's why I thought I was 100% sure the Raiders were going to win the division 2 weeks ago. I actually called it. Like an election. I went on the podcast and said, it's over. and I was wrong. And the Chiefs are a lot better than I thought. And it's because their defense, as weird as it is, and as much as stat guys might hate it, they can score points off turnovers, and that's going to make all the difference. And
special teams,
and so now what? The Raiders have to go on the road? And maybe they have to go to a Baltimore? I mean, that's not good.
You don't like that. You don't like the idea of Latavius Murray, Derek Carr, Michael Crabtree in Baltimore.
I mean, it's their defense. You can speak to that. I mean, their defense is just awful.
Right. Their defense has never been the strength this year, other than, Mack and Irvin have sort of caught fire lately, so their pass rush is heating up. But, they're still a team that you kind of wonder how they play in the cold, especially with Carr and his broken pinky and problems like that. But, I look at this Chiefs game, and, I saw kind of this was just a weird game. I think there was a lot of games this week that were just super weird in terms of that was not at all what I expected.
A lot of fights, a lot of weird, let's take 20 minutes and look at this on instant replay moments, a lot of lack of...
Well, that's normal, actually.
Yeah, I don't really watch football, so it's surprising to me.
But the Raiders, they basically dropped probably 6 or 7 passes in that game. Kelechi Osaleme, or how do you say his name? Osamele. He was a late scratch because of an illness. There was a lot of things that kind of went against them in terms of it was just a weird game. So I'm not writing them off yet. I still think that they're going to be really tough out in the playoffs.
In a couple weeks, Raiders, Cowboys. Which one's the division champ? Which one is not?
I think the Cowboys win the division. I just don't think there's any serious threat to them in the NFC East, whereas in the AFC West, I think that the Chiefs have the inside track.
Yeah, I'm with him. I think the Chiefs win that division, and obviously I think the Cowboys are going to win their division.
Here's a curveball. Is it good for these teams to get some losses under their belt? Is it good to face some December adversity so that they know what it feels like when they're going into January? So they know what it feels like to have that taste in their mouth.
Right.
And they're not necessarily like, we're 15, we're 14-2. You guys can't tell us anything about losing. You know what I mean?
I think it's the biggest thing because there's 2 young quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Because like we said, Dak has never dealt with this sort of scrutiny. And then Derek Carr never. Derek Carr was considered a good, not great quarterback last year.
So you're advocating for McGloin.
Yeah, bench him, yes, exactly. Exactly. And so I think it's going to be healthy for them to get a little bit of people questioning whether or not they're for real. I think Derek Carr will respond to that. I think Derek Carr is one of the most mentally tough athletes in the NFL right now. Just from speaking to people around him, he's the kind of guy who can bounce back from that. But he's never really, he was in anonymity for 2 years in Oakland. No one cared. I was there the day he was named starter in 2014, and nobody cared. I was there reporting, 20 other things that didn't involve him. And so...
In Oakland?
In Oakland, yeah. Just, just a day trip.
Okay.
And
you're working on Moneyball too?
And so, you end up, you're in anonymity for 2 years. No one ever questions you. Then all of a sudden you have an incredible start to the season. People are talking about you as an MVP candidate. I think it's going to be nice now for someone to say, hey, you're not very good. And
He's
then
the
he gets
underdog
angry.
again.
Yeah, they do need, I think the Raiders and the Cowboys both have that strange thing where they're these incredible brands in the NFL, but have really not had a lot of respect in the last few years for good reason.
Right.
And there's always this expectation that they'll crater at some point. What do you think about, this idea that you don't want to go into the playoffs red hot?
Yeah, I think that the idea in the NFL and just in general is you want to get hot at the right time. So you don't want to peak.
Your Seahawks have perfected that.
Yeah, it's incredible actually how someone should do a study on how Pete Carroll has done that because it's really fascinating. It's something that he does every season where I think he actually manufactures like getting hot at the right time. I don't know if it means he's sabotaging you early on in the season.
He doesn't come into work in September and October. He's just on
you guys
vacation.
are on your own.
That's a good policy.
But yeah, I mean, it's like you want to get hot at the right time, and so I think people could look at this as kind of like you're just explaining away struggles of a certain team. But like honestly, it doesn't matter as long as you're in the playoffs. It doesn't really matter if you get hot at the right time.
Yeah, and I don't think we're actually explaining away the troubles of a certain team. We're sort of concerned trolling very good football teams. Let's really concern some teams that we think could be good, but are actually having quite a few problems. So we're going to talk about the playoff picture right now. And to do that, we're going to look at how much trouble are they in. We're going to look at a couple of different teams asking the question, how much trouble are they in, right? So I want to talk a little bit about your Seahawks to start with, because apparently Earl Thomas is Thor, and they are not good at playing football without him.
Right. The crazy thing about last night's game, and I think that was the first time they've lost by more than 10 points since 2011. So since Russell Wilson's been the quarterback of the Seahawks, they haven't lost by more than 10 points.
Because he plays defense as well, which is great.
Right. No, but last night, I don't look at last night's game as Earl Thomas's fault. Like, their corners were getting smoked down the sideline. They were not getting pressure at all on Aaron Rodgers. He was having so much time to just camp back there and pick them apart. And so I don't even. The scary thing is I don't even think that was necessarily Earl's fault.
Really?
So we haven't seen the loss of Earl, I think, manifest itself yet. But honestly, I put that game more on the offense just because, I mean, you can't win if you turn the ball over 6 times.
What did you see in Seattle yesterday?
I saw that I kind of want to make Earl Thomas the MVP.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen one player be removed and the team
just
go on all 22 positions, just be like, I cannot do this anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the hell was going on the offense. I mean, it was just, basically,
worst game of Russell
the way
Wilson's
Jeff
career.
Chow put it was, the receivers are almost volleyball setting interceptions.
Yeah,
that was the way he put it, and I like that. And so, I am extremely worried right now because I knew, we talked about this in private right after it happened. The defense has to change everything. Where Camp Chancellor has to line up, how tight the corners can be, the aggression in the pass rush, whatever it is, who's dropping. We knew that was going to be a problem. And now they're going to have to find a way to make adjustments on offense. We talk about how the Seahawks are always peak at the right time. It looks like they've forgotten to play football right now. They are getting bad at the exact worst time.
Let's talk a little bit also now. Another team that I'm a little bit concerned about because they seem to have a pretty anemic offense is the Denver Broncos, right? So no matter how exciting that defense is, and obviously those guys get each other's backs, as we saw Aqib Talib had some diplomatic things to say to Harry Douglas yesterday.
But real quick, I like that Douglas' explanation for the dirty hit. If anybody didn't see it, he kind of went low on a cut block. His explanation was he does it in every game.
Right. I love that.
Really
this
good
is
out.
consistent.
Really good out. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of actually moments yesterday where it was like a very good December day, a December football week, where it was like we're almost done. Yeah. So let's if I get suspended. If people think that I'm a dirty player, they'll forget about it over the summer.
Harry Douglas has senioritis.
Yeah, or the kid on the Redskins who drilled Darren Sproles and messed up Brett Selleck's wrist. But the Broncos, I actually saw a lot of people defending Trevor Siemian yesterday and just being like, it's not really his fault. How do you see them playing out the next couple games? I mean, where are they in the AFC West race now?
Right now, they're still just barely hanging on to the 6th seed, which it's going to be an interesting battle down the stretch just because there's so many teams that are still vying for that spot. I wrote about the Broncos last night actually, and Simeon's not necessarily he's not a guy that can carry their offense, and that's not what he was ever supposed to be.
Luckily, the Broncos aren't built to have that, right?
Well, there's in theory, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But their run game has completely disappeared. Yeah. They have 0 run game. Yesterday they had 9 carries for 18 yards, and so they're putting a lot on Simeon to carry that offense, and it just hasn't really worked. And you wouldn't think that the offense would be worse than it was last year when Peyton Manning was throwing interceptions 4 or 5 times a game. But the other problem is their defense hasn't been quite as good against the run.
Yeah,
and that's been a huge factor because last year they were able to say, okay, we're stopping the run on 1st and 2nd down. You're not getting anything. Now we can load up and rush the passer on 3rd down and just destroy you. And now teams are getting 1st downs a lot through the run. So their defense is still really good. There's no way around it, but they're just not quite to that level as they were last year. So is that good enough to kind of just carry them, even though they have not much of an offense.
Well, they're going to find out because they have a brutal next 3 games. Patriots, Chiefs, Raiders.
They may go 0-3.
Yeah.
Because, again, they can't stop the run, and they can't run the ball. I mean, Justin Forsett was playing. I think he's on his...
He got more carries than Booker.
I know, and he's on, like, his 23rd team this year.
He fumbled his first carry.
Great, excellent. Yeah. And I can't believe he didn't work out. And so, look, Simeon had 334 yards, but Marcus Mariota yesterday had 88 yards in the air, okay? And so they were just like, you know what? We don't actually care about passing the ball. We're just going to run down the throats of the Denver Broncos. They can't stop us. It will neutralize Von Miller, neutralize, the DeMarcus Ware, all of these great pass rushers. Just run the ball up the middle. And if you can't stop that, then you cannot help your strengths.
Yeah,
Von Miller can't get the game-winning strip sack.
Exactly.
If no one's ever throwing the ball.
While, yeah.
And by the way, Marcus Mariota, I don't know if you watched him in the last 2 years, he loves giving up strip sacks. He can't stop giving up strip sacks.
I think he's fumbled more than any
He watches game film to figure out how to
it's
effectively...
his Twitter bio. I love giving up strip sacks and coffee.
Exactly. No, I mean, the back-breaking turnovers that turn into touchdowns that come from Marcus Mariota are almost mind-boggling. And the fact that Von Miller could not get one yesterday said a lot about the fact that they knew that they could be one-dimensional.
I like that you use that word, they neutralize the pass rush, because the best way to take a dominant pass rush out of the game is just to run the ball.
Yeah.
And they can't stop the run right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because conventional wisdom has swung so much on the Broncos. In August and July, they had no chance of making the playoffs. And all of a sudden, they're going to win the Super Bowl again in mid-October. And now we're back to like, they were who we thought they were.
How much do you think that narrative of a season stuff plays into a team's psychology? In terms of do you think that in the Broncos locker room right now that nobody believes in us? We have these tough 3 games. People think that our quarterback can't get us anywhere. Is that can that give them a boost at all, or am I just believing in sports writer fiction?
Yeah, no, I think it depends on the market.
Right.
And I think that in Denver, they just came off a Super Bowl. The questions aren't going to start. Are you guys choking?
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. In Dallas, it's going to happen.
Right.
In Dallas, it's going to happen. If the Giants lost last night, it would have happened. So it is extremely city dependent.
One team that we don't have to believe a narrative because they're just giving it to us in their quotes is this idea that the Dolphins season went down with Tannehill yesterday. It was, a lot of the guys on the team were just like, I'm heartbroken. I feel so bad. Not only so bad for Ryan, but I think understanding that with a playoff race that's this tight, it's just going to be really hard for Matt Moore to fire the Dolphins into the playoffs. Right. But should they have hope? Should the Dolphins have hope?
I mean, in this NFL, sure. Yeah. I don't see it happening, but I mean, we've talked about it many times. There's just no great teams right now, and I mean, why not the Dolphins? They got a good run game. Their defense has played pretty well the last couple of weeks, and so there's always the chance. But to me, that just makes it too hard for them to, beat good teams at this point, and I just don't have much faith in Matt Moore doing it.
I was wondering whether or not last night you had your smock on, you had the kiln, and you had the you were in front of your irons, and you were working on your Tannehill Ewing theory take.
I ran this by Bill Simmons, and he said that Ryan Tannehill is not good enough for the Ewing theory.
Oh, that's mean.
It's true. It's true. I mean, Calvin Johnson is the 2016 Ewing theory example. Okay, so as far as the Dolphins go, this injury has solidified the Dolphins as the runaway, trendy 2017 pick. There's going to be so many. Oh, they would have gotten in last year. It would have been so many people. There will be so many people. For me, I still think they have a chance.
Okay.
I mean, they still have the pieces on defense. I think they're okay on defense. The secondary could be a lot better. Yeah. Kiko Alonso has a thumb injury that worries me. Why would you be out like that? And then, Jarvis Landry, Jay Ajayi. These are good players. The health of the offensive line worries me. Pouncey needs to get back to full health. But overall, I mean, this is such a flawed league that it only makes sense that just a deeply flawed team like the Miami Dolphins would make the playoffs.
Well, and here's the thing. The Dolphins actually have their schedule going for them. They get a Jets team that is basically given up playing football. They will probably play Cardale Jones and the Buffalo Bills on the 24th.
With Anthony Lynn at head coach.
Yeah, exactly. And
what is happening?
And then they'll have the Pats on January 1st. I mean, that would be the Pats game, obviously going to be very difficult for them. But they could go 2-1 in that stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that's the thing. I would, if there was a gun to my head, I would say that the AFC North teams are going to make the playoffs, but I don't see any reason that the Dolphins can't pull out 2 wins.
What do you think about the chances of the Colts, who looked god-awful yesterday? Yeah. But I think that we like to keep them in the conversation just because there is a collective belief in Andrew Luck's wizardry, even though that wizardry seems to be more and more just like smoke and mirrors.
I mean, yesterday he was pretty terrible. Yeah. You know, he made a couple of, like, his one throw where he was running to his left and he, like, tossed it across his body to the right, like, just terrible. And
Bortles-esque.
Yeah, I mean, that's
the worst thing you can do.
So, I don't know. Like, with that, Andrew Luck, definitely, they're toast. But, I mean, again, they're in the South. That division is, you know, up for grabs still, crazily. And, I don't know, with a good quarterback, again, in this league, you know, there's so many flawed teams on one side or the other that you could do it. But I don't see that happening. I kind of feel like that their last chance was yesterday and they blew it.
I think there was when they showed the highlight package during, you know, Football Night in America or whatever, there was a lower third graphic that was just like Indianapolis is swept by Houston for the first time, and I was like, oh, of course the storied history of the AFC South.
Yeah. For me, I could not believe how bad Indianapolis' execution was, their play calling. So they lost the game. I don't know if you saw this on Football Night in America, but they lost the game.
Get all my news.
I don't know if Rodney and Tony broke this down, but they lost the game on a 4th-and-1 screen that went nowhere, where the running back basically dropped the ball because he was thinking about how to get the first down, even though it was not possible because it was just such a bad play call. My problem with the Colts is I don't know what their problem is because the goalposts keep shifting, quite frankly. It was the offensive line, and then they started sliding their protections, and they got more help for Luck, and then now he has time to throw, and surprise, he's still bad. Yeah. And that's what's worrying to me. He just makes these dumb mistakes. You know, you wonder if maybe just the fact that he got hit so much in the first, 10 weeks of the season, 12 weeks of the season, he's starting to see shadows and he's just, getting rid of the ball in ways he wouldn't normally.
Yeah.
And so I am not, it's not like the Raiders where we say, okay, if they short up their pass defense, they would figure it out. It's just like there are 50 problems and I don't know where to start with the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah,
there is one thing to start, and that's getting rid of Chuck Pagano and Ryan Grayson.
Right, but they just extended.
So you think that this is just a matter of leadership and coaching? Like, does leadership and coaching change what you're seeing?
It's talent. Yeah. It's talent and coaching.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, their talent foundation is not good at all.
Well, okay, so is there a team out there that also has a talent foundation that you're pretty into, but you just feel like they need a couple of some tinkering going on in the leadership part?
In the leadership part?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's a few teams we could bring up the Jags, about that, but in terms of...
I mean, like a good team.
Good team.
Yeah, in terms of playoff teams, I mean, no, the Colts to me are like the bright, shining example of that. I can't think of anyone who else I'm like, they need to fire.
Let me ask you a question, Danny. Do you think there's a leadership void in Seattle? Because I'm not joking. Because everyone talks about how emotionally healthy they are, and they yell at each other, whatever. But I think that Earl Thomas was like the alpha dog there, and I wonder if maybe guys are going to start to.
When he's watching the game at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Is that what he's doing?
That's what he talked.
Earl Thomas is going to Buffalo Wild Wings to watch. Couldn't he just go to the sideline? Can he watch from the sideline and give his teammates some encouragement?
Maybe he couldn't get on the plane.
Let's take a wide-angle view of the playoff picture now, and I want to basically go into the future with you guys. Okay, we're going to go into the future. We're going to look at your brackets.
Yeah.
And we're going to look at your Super Bowl, your Super Bowl matchups.
Here we go.
And we're going to work backwards from there. And we're going to basically go down the road to the Super Bowl, and then we're going to go backwards. So let's start with you, Danny. Let's talk about your bracket. Who do you have in the Super Bowl?
I've got the Cowboys and Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And am I supposed to tell you the winner yet?
I don't see why not.
Okay, I got the
Why
Cowboys.
leave Americans
Should we throw a spoiler alert on here?
We just got through Westworld, so
Trigger
I don't
warning.
think we could deal with any more
I
suspense.
got the Cowboys beating the Patriots.
What a
in the Super
surprise.
Bowl.
Ooh.
I was thinking about this last night. I'm like, okay, yeah, the Cowboys have lost. They lost the game. They've struggled 2 games in a row. But, like, who else are we going to pick that looks like amazing right now? Like the Packers? But they might not even make the playoffs, so.
What about the Giants?
I mean, the Giants' offense
I'm not
is
trying
still
to
just
upend your
putrid.
bracket.
No,
I'm just
the
asking.
Giants' offense is just still so dependent on Beckham making an amazing play. I don't know if you can really.
They run 2 plays.
a slant.
They run a
and
slant
run.
that either goes incomplete or goes for 70 yards. That's the one. That's
Right.
one play.
Or almost gets picked
That's
off.
play 1.
Yeah.
And play 2 is where the offensive line collapses and Perkins gets 1 yard.
Look, I find that slant play to be very efficient. It's a 50-50 situation. There's not a lot of like permutations of what can happen there. Let's talk a little bit about the road to the Super Bowl there.
Yeah.
How do you see the Cowboys getting there?
Okay, so I've got obviously the Cowboys #1 seed, so they got to bye the first round. I'll go backwards.
Okay.
Conference round, I see them beating the Seahawks in Dallas. Divisional round, I have them beating the Falcons.
Okay.
So,
Interesting you think the Seahawks are going to get that far.
yeah, I mean, I'm still kind of, again, it's just looking at every team in the NFC. Like the Lions look hot right now, but they're, obviously Stafford has the finger issue now that you have to worry about. Like, will that matter? They've been really
Finger issues, by the way, hot right now.
They are
Carr's
very
got
hot,
one.
but he's only throwing the ball like 6 yards anyway, and then Golden Tate's just getting yards at the catch. What does it
So
matter,
maybe
right?
it won't matter. But like they've needed fourth quarter comebacks, and I think like all but one of their wins this year. So, again, it's sort of a sustainability thing. Like, is this sustainable? And I think based on the Seahawks schedule, they played the rest of the NFC West teams 2 games at home. I think that they can win out, and I think they can get the 2 seed. And I had this written down. Evan Silva tweeted this today. The Seahawks are averaging 28.5 points at home and 12.5 points per game on the road.
Wow.
So if the Seahawks get that 2 seed, that's huge because they're playing 2 games at home, or they're playing
One
divisional game at home, which they can win. I think just based on, being a good team at home, and then, they go to Dallas, and that's a lot tougher.
Let's talk a little bit about the AFC side of your bracket. I'm curious about the road for the Patriots, but I also want to hear about where do you see the Steelers coming up in here? And
Yeah, so I've got the Steelers playing the Patriots in the championship game.
Okay.
Which they're going to need to get past the Chiefs in the divisional round to me, and so they're.
So you have them getting the division.
I have them winning the AFC North, beating the Broncos, who I've got sneaking in with the 6th seed, and then they play the Chiefs in Kansas City
and win.
Little
Todd Haley revenge.
Why not?
Yeah, great. That's a narrative we were all waiting for.
Todd Haley, by the way, I love that every time I get a cutaway shot to Todd Haley, it takes me like 5 seconds to be like, is that Todd Haley? Because now he has like this amazing death metal beard. But
it's either Todd Haley or a massive security breach.
But there was a
on the
while.
field.
There was a while where he was going with just really bad chopper pilot goatee, and now he has this amazing I know winter is coming beard. What did you think of the Steelers yesterday?
I mean, Roethlisberger played terrible and they still won. I mean, Le'Veon Bell is amazing.
Yeah.
The things he can do, and that's not a bad defense either in Buffalo. And in the snow, I mean, I don't know. I just look at them right now, and if they get good play from Roethlisberger, they've got so many weapons, with Brown and Bell.
Yeah.
That, I don't know. They just seem to me, and their defense is playing a lot better lately. So they just seem to me like they're, like we talked about, they're getting hot at the right time.
Let's talk about your bracket. How about that?
Let's
do that.
Who do you have going to Houston for the Super Bowl?
Sadly, I have New England and Dallas, just like Danny Kelly.
Consensus. This is
great.
great.
It's a groupthink. We didn't share our brackets.
We didn't. This is all surprising.
Although I would say that the last time we did Talking Football Live, brought to you by Miller Lite, we did have the Raiders in there. So the Raiders are starting to drop in stock collectively.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, exactly. And so I have New England winning.
Okay.
I just think that they are more complete than we think. You have to consider how bad everybody else is, and you can say, okay, well, the Patriots have a mediocre defense, but that means it's a good defense in 2016.
Right.
2016, bad year for everybody, including defenses. And so, you have Oakland and New England in the AFC Championship, and I think that's going to be a classic game, replay of the Tuck Rule game. It's going to be great, but again, young quarterback, they've never been there, bad defense. I mean, Gronk's out. Who's going to stop the other 4 receivers?
Right.
Who's going to, Tom Brady's going to pick that defense apart.
You think Tom Brady's going to shoot out with Derek Carr?
Yeah, and yes, because I think that the Oakland defense is so bad that Brady could score 50 on them.
It's hard to tell because the last 3 games they've played, Rams, Jets, and Niners, they've put up a lot of points, but it against the Rams, Jets, and Niners. So it's kind of hard. I'm not sure. I know that the
I
Raiders
get
don't
that.
have like an excellent defense, but if they get into a duel, I wonder whether or not.
I think I would really enjoy that, but I think Brady wins that 9 times out of 10.
Okay.
I really do, just because of the defense. If they're in a vacuum and they had the same, rosters, then we're getting into something different, and I think Carr would give them a chance, right? But that pass defense in Oakland is so miserably bad, like historically bad.
Talk to me a little bit about the NFC side of your bracket
Yeah.
and the road the Cowboys have to take to get here.
Okay, so I actually like Detroit more than most people.
Oh, okay.
I think Detroit wins the division, but they do not get the bye. I think Seattle and Dallas get the bye. So Detroit beats Minnesota, who I oddly still have in here. I don't know why. I think it's a computing error. And I think Minnesota somehow sneaks. I think they beat the Packers in Week 16.
Yeah.
I don't know why. So then Seattle hosts Detroit. Detroit wins that. And I think, and that was something I believed. We submitted these brackets before yesterday's game.
Yeah.
And that was something I believed even before I saw Seattle play yesterday.
Yeah.
I think, again, Detroit's almost like New England in the sense that a mediocre defense is a good defense this year. And
Their defense has been better lately, too.
Yeah, exactly. And they're getting turnovers. That's the most important
Yeah.
thing. You'd be like Kansas City. If you're going to be a bad defense, you better be a defense that creates turnovers. And that's when they've been able to do it the last 2 minutes of games. Quentin Glover, guys like that,
Yeah.
Darius
Yeah.
Slay, they're able to get, in the same way that Oakland does the minute and a half, fade route to Michael Crabtree, Detroit gets the 90 seconds left, great interception, and that's why I think that they can get a little bit far in this. Get to
I
the
like
conference
Detroit, yeah.
championship.
Do you think that Detroit is the NFC version of the Dolphins, where they're going to be next year's sexy pick for the Super Bowl?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah. Right. One
Yeah.
more
Only
year
if
of
they
Cooter.
Yeah.
To
Oh God.
truly learn.
Cooter could be the head coach pretty
Cooter's
soon.
system.
Cooter should get the head coach in waiting job.
He should.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be dope if Cooter went to Bama.
The heir
He was like,
apparent.
I've decided to just go be the OC at Bama.
He was in the SEC for a while. He was at Tennessee. And
Yeah,
Was he really?
Tennessee.
The match made in heaven, yeah.
That's why Peyton Manning loved him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you had the Vikings getting in, though.
I do have the Vikings getting in. I also oddly have Tampa Bay winning the division.
No, I can see
I
that.
love Tampa Bay.
I
Yeah.
can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I that is a little more of a stretch for me.
That's
going
going to get hot, too, is also if Tampa beats Dallas next week.
That's
Oh,
going to
yeah.
be a good game.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay is really on fire right now.
But that serves a double purpose because you'd get the win for Tampa Bay, but then it'd also send Dallas into disarray.
Right,
It would be a
basically-
double win.
Yeah.
Roma would start after that.
Absolutely.
That's
Dallas
crazy.
in crisis.
Dak was an MVP candidate, literally.
I think that's
until last
insane.
week.
I think you ride this out. I just do not think you can
Is
do
there
that.
any scenario in which you would start Tony Romo if Dak is healthy?
No. I think Dak could basically lose out. I wouldn't start Romo. I would bring in Romo in like the second half of the first playoff game, though. You know what I mean? Like some crazy Joe Madden thing.
Yeah.
Or maybe
okay.
I would just throw him in for a couple of series here and there.
The Romo plays.
The Romo plays?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is the Romo play? Rolling out and getting your back shattered?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Breaking a bone in your back. And just,
Just want to ask one quick question. I want to see if you guys have a nominee for this. It feels like every year, but every few years, there is a Baltimore team where
Yeah.
it's just like the team that is lurking in the clouds,
Yeah.
and then they have a really good defense, and their quarterback gets it together just enough to win them some games, and then you just do not want to play them in cold weather somewhere. I am just talking about Baltimore, but is there a Baltimore, whether it is the Ravens, or is there a Baltimore team that you see on the horizon that can upend this whole thing?
well, look, the cold weather thing throws in a disarray. I think it would be Tampa, just the
Yeah.
team that could go out and be dangerous
That's what
and
I
no
was
one's
thinking.
thinking about them.
Yeah.
But the fact, Tampa historically, and it's different players and all that, but they have struggled in cold weather since they came into the league in the 1970s.
But now they're used
okay?
to their own kind of like inclement, like they're used to just playing in just
thunderstorms?
downstick monsoons. Yeah, come down to Tampa, play in a monsoon.
Just
and
the
see how
field
they do.
is
Tampa
muddy,
Tampa will have a home game, and then they would have to go on the road.
Because you got them
to-
winning the South.
I do,
Yeah.
yeah. And then they would go to what, Dallas? I mean, they could. Who knows? I
Anything
mean,
can happen.
we'll see this week.
I mean, honestly,
who's your Baltimore team? Who's your surprise?
Well, I had Tampa Bay in mind, and I actually think Baltimore
Yeah,
is one of those
Baltimore
teams.
is the Baltimore team.
Baltimore is Baltimore.
Well, New York or Baltimore is the Baltimore team.
Okay.
Because everyone's still underestimating both of those teams, New York and Baltimore. But they have really strong defenses and offenses that can sometimes, get explosive plays. So,
Yeah.
like Baltimore, for instance, if Flacco heats up like he did in 2012, why can't they win the Super Bowl?
Who's laughing at Ben McAdoo now? Am I right?
Still me.
Okay. We're going to wrap it up. For Danny Kelly and Kevin Clark, I am Chris Ryan. This has been Talking Football Live. We are brought to you by Miller Lite. If you get a chance, please go to theringer.com and check out Rogue One Week. We have a bunch of great stuff up this week in anticipation of the new Star Wars movie, including a very funny video called The Death Star, how to blow up the Death Star playbook. I'm paraphrasing, but it's basically about that.
I'm writing about Belichick this week, and we're not even branding it as like an evil empire thing.
We should. He should just, because if he has the hood up, it's just,
that,
Palpatine. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Until next time, I'm Chris Ryan. Take care.